Hello, Tim here. Well, it's another brew day. Outside, it's the middle of July. It's about 80 degrees, it's noon, and I'm ready to make 8 gallons of an Irish Red. It's pretty much the same recipe I had in an earlier video, only this time I've got a little bit different equipment and I've run out. So it's time to make some more. Seems to be the favorite beer of all my friends, and I can't keep it in stock. So anyway, take a quick look at what we got going over here. Alright, you can see my setup. It's a semi 3-tier system. I do have a pump that I'll put in place in a little bit, and it's not really gravity fed, but you can see on the left I got my hot liquor tank, the center the boil kettle, and to the right is the mash tun. Setup works pretty good. I'm sure I'll rearrange it a little bit as we go along. I've only used this once, and I'm still learning the ins and outs of how things are set up here. But I got I believe a 50,000 BTU burner on the left, 110,000 BTU jet burner in the middle, and just an old cooler for the mash tun. Underneath the cooler you can see I've got my portable electric brew controller. What I'm only using that for right now is to monitor the temp on my liquor tank, and it's just about up to temp. I need 168 degree water, and in fact I think it just hit 168 degrees, so I'm going to shut that down and get ready to mash in. Alright, just getting ready to mash in. Quick tip, something I found out, you know, if you look down there, I got my chugger pump ready to go on the bottom down there, and it's got a hose on it, but I have found that chugger pumps, and I imagine the March pumps are the same, but they're a pain in the butt to get them primed. So I got a little trick that I do. Got this fitting here, brass fitting. I actually hook it up to my sink to clean things out. Barb and a standard hose connection on it. Okay, got a little hose valve here. Hook this up to the end of the hose. Now what I'm going to do is run it through my pump. And rather than wait for gravity, I'm not going to wait for gravity to feed the thing. I'm just going to pour some water through it, get the air out. And that should be all I need. Looks like I pushed a little bit of crud out into my mash tun. Okay, that dumped out. Start pumping the water over. Now looking at my water temperature after I turned it off, it went from 168 to 180 degrees. Obviously that's going to be a little bit hot, but since I just threw some cold water into the cooler, it should cool it down considerably. I'll check the temp before I mash in. If I have to add a little bit of water to cool it off, I will. It's not going to hurt anything. In the end, I'll boil off what I don't need. Alright. Water's flowing in nicely. You can see little bubbles coming out there. Flowing out of here real nice. It's going down. And should be doing pretty good. Alright, the water's all transferred. Temperature's right where I need it. I'm going to start mashing in. Got 4 different grains here. Some Crystal 40 I'll throw in. And then I got a combination of 2-row roasted and flaked barley. I believe it's, let's see, 14 pounds of 2-row, pound and a half of roasted barley, and I think a pound of flake barley. And get it all stirred around so the water gets on all the grain. Don't have any dry spots. There you go. Okay. You're mashed in. Now that we have mashed in or doughed in, I'm going to start my timer. And I'm going to mash this for about 45 minutes, I believe, before we start raising the temperature and sparging. Okay, now while I'm going to do this, I am going to set up a recirculation. Keep everything at the right temp. Go ahead. See what we're doing here. Put my temperature thing in the middle. And it actually says I'm about 160 degrees, so it's a little bit warm. May just cool that off a bit. Okay. Been mashing for a while, about a half hour or so. I have hooked up my rim system. So you look over there, my Recirculating infusion mash system, and that is hooked up and powered by the brew controller down there. I don't know if you can see it with the glare, but the brew controller is set to control the temperature of the wort coming out of the rim system and keep it at about 158 degrees. It's recirculating it back into the mash tun. You can see coming through there. And one of the advantages of that, and actually maybe you couldn't see that, let me move the camera a bit and I'll show you again. You can see it's recirculating the water, or the wort, excuse me, back in, and it's keeping it warm as it transfers it around, and that should keep my mash at a really decent temperature, right where I want it. I've started to heat up my sparge water at about 45 or 50 minutes into the mash. I'm going to add about 2 gallons of water to it, and that will raise the temperature up to about 165. I'll also have the recirculator go up a few degrees, and that will make sure I got all the enzymes turned on, so to speak, and releasing all the sugar out of the grain. The final step will be the fly sparging, and I'm going to heat up another 4 or 5 gallons of water, I believe, to 168 degrees, and then we essentially just rinse the grain. All the sugars should be released by then, so we just want to make sure it all gets rinsed off of the grain. So we'll fly sparge it, it'll rinse the water down through the grain and into the boiling kettle. That'll be just a few minutes from now though. Alright, I'm in the process now of mashing out. I'm adding some 200-degree water into the mash tun, pumping it from the liquor tank through the rim system and up into the tun. I'm actually going to change this now and recirculate it from here. And now that I've started the actual mash out process, it's 165 degrees in there, and that's going to get the rest of the enzymes out. And pretty soon I'll be ready to do my fly sparging. While this is doing that though, I have to go heat up some water. Okay, transferring my water from the hot liquor tank through the rims into the mash tun where we're fly sparging. Got water draining out of the mash tun down here, going through the pump into the boil kettle. It's been going now for a good 10 minutes or so, and I'm almost to the 3-gallon mark. This is probably going to take somewhere in the neighborhood of 20-25 minutes to finish up. I'm shooting for a little over 10.5 gallons of wort in the boil kettle. pre-boil. I'm hoping for a specific gravity of somewhere around 1.0. Okay, got the boil going. Made it through the hop break just fine. Got my first hop addition. These are some Pugils, about 2 3/4 ounces. We'll drop them in. Tie the bag off so it doesn't get in the way of my whirlpooling later. Okay, start at 60 minutes. Okay, made my last hops addition and I just did flame out with it. 10 minutes I put Irish moss in, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to recirculate whirlpool and turn on my counterflow chiller, and we'll see if that cools it down a bit while it's whirlpooling and get some of the proteins coagulating. You can hear my neighbor mowing his lawn. Sorry. There's what I got going right now, and there's the counterflow chiller, the pump on the ground, and we're chilling. Well, I'm done. Transferred the wort into my carboy in a 5-gallon bucket. I'll be pitching yeast in about 12 hours. I've got a yeast starter going now. I want to let it go for a little while, so I'll be pitching that later. I'll aerate it before I pitch the yeast, and in about 2 weeks I'll be bottling. It's taken me about 5.5 hours start to finish to do this, compressed down into the time of this video, but I hope it was helpful for people doing it. Right now I'm going to clean up. I got to wash out my counterflow chiller and wash out the kegel and do all that fun stuff that I haven't done already. I've cleaned up most of it, but now just the last bits. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed the video and learned a little bit. Take care. Cheers. Here is my yeast starter. It is actually the next morning after I did the brewing. I had not done a yeast starter initially, and before I brewed, so I made one while I was brewing yesterday, and it's been going now about 18 hours. I think I'm going to let it go a little while longer. I didn't think it was going very well. I had used some harvested yeast, and it was about 6 months old, so I think I need to get it going. So I did add some yeast nutrient to it this morning, and another vial of harvested yeast. I had 3 vials that I put in here, and I'm afraid I'm going to really get some vigorous fermentation, but better than no fermentation, I guess, as long as it doesn't go too fast. But anyway, got a 2-liter Erlenmeyer flask, got a computer fan with a piece of PVC on it, and you can't really see, but there's a magnet that I harvested out of an old dead hard drive. A pretty strong magnet that's hot glued to the top of that piece of PVC pipe, and just your basic plastic container. Anyway, works pretty good. I'll pitch this in a little while. I was a little concerned that my yeast starter wasn't working, and I said I added some nutrient to it, and I got some bubbling. I stopped the stir plate and let it settle a bit, and then restarted it, and sure enough I got bubbles. But I thought I would check to see if I got some fermentation going on. So what I did is I put an airlock on top, and sure enough, it actually is bubbling away. So my yeast starter's good. It's gonna be ready to pitch in an hour or two, I think. Maybe. Alright, it's been about 18-19 hours since I added the yeast, and we got some definite activity here, and good sized crimson on top. Not enough to need a blow off tube yet, but definitely enough to show some fermentation. So hopefully it'll be strong enough to get the beer down to the specific gravity you want to end up at.